The government has taken action, as we've been describing this morning, over our cost of living crisis, and that comes just a week after the Prime Minister refused to acknowledge that it was a crisis here on our show. That interview on AM sparked a huge response from you, and the fight went all the way to Parliament, sparking change. Let's take a look.
Do we have a cost of living crisis?
Oh, I wouldn't describe it that way.
The Prime Minister says, there is no magic wand. Well, there actually is a magic wand. Take the regional fuel tax off and cut the GST out of petrol for a short period of time.
I've just spent a lot of money on an amazing degree that I cannot go and use because it's cheaper for me to be at home.
What does she say to the mother of five, Christine Nation, who told the AM show, quote, "This is something that is so embarrassing to say, but I cannot afford to go to work." And how does she think struggling Kiwi families feel when they hear her refusing to even admit we have a cost of living crisis?
That for many people, it will absolutely feel like that.
But you won't say the words?
In that same interview,
this represents a crisis for many families, absolutely.
So you saw our viewers there, Christine Nation and Steve Christodoulou, and they helped highlight just how tough it is for people, eventually prompting the government to respond. And to get their reaction to that, we welcome back Christine and Steve. Thank you very much again for being with us this morning. Christine, you were mentioned in Parliament. In hindsight, now a week on from giving that interview, how do you feel about sharing your story, given if you hadn't, we may not be at this point?
Good. I feel really good.
And
it was actually amazing how many people were just so happy that everyone was bringing it to light. So yeah, really good.
And Steve, you called on the government to wave a magic wand. You said there is a magic wand. Well, it appears they've waved it. Does it fix everything for you?
I think, it's a great start, definitely, and it does help, somewhat, but it's a start. Things are still up and it's not going to change overnight. And, when we've still got the regional fuel tax here in Auckland and it's off the rest of the country, then, it does add still a bit of pressure.
And we don't know if it's changed overnight because we're still investigating the fuel prices and whether the 25 cents has, in fact, been taken off every petrol station. Christine, though, in the meantime, over the last week, you have had to make budget changes for your family still.
Yes. Well, when I heard about the petrol increases coming in, that we had to.
What did you have to do?
So where I live, because we live in Foxton Beach, it's semi-rural, a lot of the things that my children have to do are out of town. So we made a plan to cut those for a few weeks just to get some money behind us for emergency, because we haven't been able to maintain our savings. So that just means a few weeks or a couple of weeks of them not being able to go to their cadets and hip hop and swimming lessons and stuff like that.
So do the tax cuts, the change in the tax cuts on fuel, change that? Can your kids now go to their extracurricular activities, or they still can't do that?
Yeah, so we will, if it comes through that petrol is exactly the same as it was last week, then we can go back to doing that. But we still are exactly where we were last week, no different.
Steve, the other, I guess, incentive or relief that the government is saying that they are going to offer is from the 1st of April in terms of working for families tax credits. Do you qualify for them? Is that going to help you at all?
Oh, look, I think there's a huge portion of the population that definitely will qualify and it will help them immensely in some ways. But there is still that middle 40% that sort of we sit in that, you either earn too much or you slightly fall out of that category that qualify. And it's a shame because, things don't change for us. We don't get that benefit. 25 cents a litre, fantastic. My rent's still up $150 a week on average. 13% increase in my grocery bill every week. It all adds up. And when you don't qualify for those extra additional bits of money that the government are handing out, then you sort of still get stuck in that same rut, that same spot.
And so 40%, that's a large chunk of middle New Zealand who are still going to be struggling. Christine, does this do anything in terms of your grocery bill, which you told us last week has increased $4,000 yearly?
It was $7,000 yearly.
Right, even more.
Look, I don't think that we will get this, and my thoughts on this, as unpopular as it might be, I don't think anyone, this isn't relief, what they're offering, because we're about to come into winter. So there are going to be a whole lot of new payments that we haven't had over summer. So while the people that do qualify for these payments won't be any worse off, those of us that don't qualify for the payments, we're still going to be worse off. We've got all the winter payments. So those that do get these increases, they won't see the benefits of them until about spring, if you work it out, because they're about to get a whole lot of new payments anyway, new costs anyway, which these payments will cover.
So the Working for Families tax credits are going to soak up extra costs that they're going to get anyway, which is going to leave them basically back at square one. And then those who don't qualify are going to actually have extra costs. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not that I'm a professional, but sitting from the average New Zealander, this is what it looks like and feels like.
So, Christine, you said that the government last week you said specifically the Prime Minister needs to get on the ground floor and see and hear what people are going through. Do you think that yesterday's announcement is a sign that they have?
No, not at all. If she said last week that there wasn't a crisis, that hasn't changed. If these new proposals have been in the making for a long time. I mean, we've just found out that these big corporations and supermarket companies have been pocketing so much money while we've been screaming out for help, and no one has addressed that. It is the duty of the government to make sure that we have access to good, healthy food. So essentially, while we've spent a lot of money on one health crisis, we're potentially about to enter another one, and no one has said anything about these big corporations pocketing all this money while we are sitting here saying we need food. We can't get food. So everything that I read and I saw yesterday, I'm sitting here going, nothing changed.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the Commerce Commission has said something about the big corporations, but whether anything is actually done about it, whether those recommendations are implemented, we're still yet to see. Steve, where do you think the magic wand needs to go next?
Well, I think it's quite simple. You know, the government need to take their hands off at the moment because everything they seem to do doesn't seem to come into fruition. Let's open up some space. Let's get some competition in this country to start with so that we can, one, have decent price supermarket items. You know, things are expensive here. It's unbelievably expensive at the moment with the fuel. There is a magic wand. Yes, it will take a bit longer. But look, let's start by dropping the Auckland regional fuel tax at a start, you know, to fund Phil Goff cycleways. It's a tough.
Hey, Christine and Chris, can we just do a quick thumbs up, thumbs down? Thumbs up if you think yesterday's announcement was because the government genuinely understands and genuinely cares, or a thumbs down if you think it was driven by last week's poll.
The poll.
There you go.
Christine Nation and Steve Christodoulou, thanks again for being with us this morning.